We've got new Q3 foreclosure data. Today, we're going to look at what it means for the housing market, where we are, where we've been, and where we might go with this data line in the future. Stay tuned.
I keep it real. I keep it real. I keep it real. Just keep it real.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Sam Hartman. As always, I'm here to keep it real estate with you, bringing you the context and clarity that you need to be confident real estate consumers out there in the world. And do me a favor, if you like my content, if you like this video, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel and shoot me a comment, shoot me a message. Let me know if there's any articles you want me to elaborate on or give further insights or context to. I want to know what type of content you guys keep wanting me to put out there. So today, what we're talking about is Q3 2025 foreclosure data. We just got this data out. I think foreclosures is a great data line to look at in terms of the health of the real estate market. And depending on what your algorithm on social media or YouTube is feeding you, you might see some videos that have been claiming major changes in foreclosure data. You might see some videos that are claiming the next housing crash is on its way and right around the corner. And these, what we like to call doomers, are constantly making similar talking points and throwing old data lines out. And they've been doing this for 5 years, and for 5 years, they continue to be wrong. So today we're actually gonna look at real data, real insights, and see what it might mean for the housing market. Now, first and foremost, there have been some major events in recent history that has really bastardized people's mindset about housing. And the first of those is the great financial crisis, the housing crash of 2008. This thing has scarred people so badly that they don't even know up from down in terms of the housing market. It feels so recent to them that they feel like the next one is right around the corner. So that is recency bias number one, is that 2008, although it's almost 20 years ago, still feels very recent to a lot of people. The second of those events is the pandemic, COVID-19. A lot of market dynamics got flipped on its head during that time frame and caused a lot of unique market challenges going from 2020 to where we are today in the market as the market begins to normalize a little bit. Now, neither of those events was a healthy housing market, was healthy for housing. In 2008, we saw market prices come down over a 5-year period. On average, markets across the US depreciated by 20% from the housing crash. Quick side note, Fort Wayne, Indiana, we only depreciated 5% from the 2008 financial crisis. So keep that in mind for my Fort Wayne home buyers, that even the worst of worst times was not all that bad in Fort Wayne. So keep that in mind. Fort Wayne's market continues to be a sturdy, conservative real estate market, not too high or low of swings of things. But the pandemic also wasn't healthy. That the pandemic saw heated price appreciation, major price appreciation in a very short amount of time. And now it puts us in this constrained affordability window that we're looking at today in 2025. But because of that COVID-19, because of that pandemic market, because of that speed, that appreciation, that fire of a market that we experienced because of the pandemic, has a lot of people looking to the other side thinking, well, the other shoe's got to drop. We're going to have another crash. There's going to be a downswing. And so I love looking at this foreclosure data line because foreclosures were a huge part of the market crash in 2008 and can give us some really good indicators and leading indicators as far as the health of our current market. So let's look at where we are. Let's look at where we've been, and we'll look ahead to see some of those leading indicators of where we might be going in the future. And so first and foremost, at the peak of the pandemic, we actually saw the biggest quarter was just about 600,000 foreclosures. Today, Q3 of 2025 has us at 54,760. Now, today, the market is beginning to normalize. 2025 has been a little bit more of a normal market. And really, because of the pandemic, we look back to 2017, 2018, and 2019 as really the three previous years to the pandemic when the market was more quote unquote normal. And so if we look at 2017, we saw just shy of 70,000 foreclosures. In 2018, 64,000. And again in 2019, 64,000. So we're about 10,000 foreclosures away from a more normalized market, normalized expectation today. So that's where we are today. But where have we been? Where are we coming from? How can we put this into a picture of context as far as foreclosures as the whole? And this graph here I have to my side shows you the quarterly foreclosure data dating back to, looks like about 2000. So this captures the years leading up to the housing crash itself, and to where we are today. And you see here, this data line way up here, this is the 600,000 foreclosures in one quarter. This is the peak of the housing crash, the peak of the great financial crisis. And you see, we've seen that for an extended period of time. It really was a recovery period from about 2008, where it peaks in 2009 and recovers over the years following till about 2013. And so we see this precipitous fall in foreclosure data over those years. And why is that? Well, what a lot of people don't know or understand is what led to the great financial crisis. Banks were giving what we called ninja loans, no income, no job. The qualifying standards for what it would take for someone to be able to get a mortgage and purchase a home was almost nothing. And so after the pandemic, we put into place what's called qualified mortgage. And God forbid, it actually put some standards to qualify for a mortgage. You had to have a job. You had to have an income that could be proven. You had to have a certain balance ratio of your debts to your income. You had to have savings. You had to have reserves. You had to have a credit score. And so with these qualified mortgage standards, we saw foreclosure data diminish really over the years to a point where really a fairly normalized, based off of these quarterly readings, was below 100,000 foreclosures per quarter. Now, the next event, the pandemic, here is where we see this drop to almost zero. Because of the pandemic, the government actually put a moratorium on foreclosures, so we saw that data line fall off a cliff. It basically went down to zero. The government wasn't foreclosing on homes. People had time to get back on their feet. Now, when that moratorium lifted, we saw foreclosures begin to rise, and we saw a lot of headlines. We saw a lot of people dooming and glooming about these major shifts in foreclosure data. Well, guess what? When you're starting from 0 to 1 or 2, that's going to be a huge percentage shift. I could write a headline when we go from 1 foreclosure to 2 foreclosures that foreclosures have increased by 100%. And that headline would make a lot of fear in consumers' eyes. But here's where we were at the depths of the COVID-19 moratorium. And here's where we are today. Still not even returned to those pre-pandemic levels of foreclosures. So check out this graph, check out this data line. Even the most uneducated housing person, most uneducated graph reading person could look at this chart and say, well, that doesn't look anything like that. So that's context number one, is that although foreclosure data has been ticking up, we are still at an amazingly healthy and actually below even what is considered normal and healthy in terms of foreclosures. So that's where we are in today's market. But foreclosure data actually gives us a few great leading indicators that could help us project and predict if there's future cause for concern of foreclosure growth. And that would be the 90-day delinquency data. And here I have a chart that graphs delinquency data showing credit cards in the yellow, student loan debt in the red, auto loans in the black, and then you see the blue lines, mortgage debt and home equity lines of credit debt. These are the two debts that are tied specifically to properties. And if homeowners were to default on these, could potentially lead to foreclosures. So these two blue lines are down here. We're actually at 0.8% of mortgages that are 90-day delinquent. So you can see again, here we are where the blue lines are at during the pandemic, almost 5% delinquency rate, falling down to where we are today at 0.8%. So again, this is healthy, this is strong, this is a good leading indicator that there's no immediate cracking in this data that would make us concerned about any immediate foreclosure crisis in the near future. We're going to take one more step back at another leading indicator though. If 90-day delinquencies are an indicator, let's take one step back to the 30-day delinquency. Now these ones are not as delinquent. These ones are maybe short-term delinquencies, maybe a little bit more of a sign that these homeowners could bounce back. But if it's 30 days delinquent, it could be at risk of turning into 90-day delinquent, which could then lead to foreclosure. So this again has the red student loan bar graph, the yellow credit card, the black auto loan, and then we've got the mortgage and HELOC loans down here as well. And these ones are a bit higher. So mortgage loans just under 4%, the HELOCs just above 2%. So that's expected that a shorter time frame delinquency, more percentage of loans will fall into that bucket. But again, let's look contextually about where they were. Where was mortgage foreclosure rate 30-day delinquent during the housing crash? And we look back, it was over 12%. And today we're under 4%. The HELOCs were just over 2%. HELOCs were 7.5% during the great financial crisis. So the context is so key here. Don't just look at what's changed maybe year to year in recent data or month to month or quarter to quarter, but actually looking back to how does this fit in the context of the market as a whole. Now, something that we continue to look at and monitor and be aware of is this delinquency data based specifically on the type of loans that are out there. Now we know there are conventional loans, pretty standard. This actually makes up the bulk of mortgages out there. So health in the conventional loan is going to be health for mortgages and delinquencies and foreclosures across the board. But we also have VA loans, we also have FHA loans, and we also have, jumbo loans and some other non-conforming products that might fit into that other line. And we have seen an increase in VA loan delinquencies in the 30-day time frame, and a big increase in the FHA delinquencies as well. So these FHA borrowers, FHA loans have different qualifying standards there. It's a government loan. It is a product that is meant to hopefully encourage home ownership and get people's foot in the door of home ownerships that might not qualify in some other potential standards. A little bit different credit score requirements, a little bit different income and debt requirements and everything with these loans. So these borrowers are at more risk, and we see that in this delinquency data. So this is a data line to continue to monitor, but again, the conventional loans are the bulk of mortgages, and those remain very low, below 0.5% of that 30-day delinquency data. The FHAs makes up a much smaller piece of the bucket. So even though we're seeing cracks and kind of some jumps in the delinquency rate with the FHA data, it again is not necessarily a major leading indicator that there's not health across the board, but we do want to continue to monitor that. And we do want to, protect those homeowners and make sure that they're staying healthy in their mortgage, in their home, and that they remain at low risk for foreclosure. Now, to bring all of this back full circle, I want to highlight the Fort Wayne, Indiana market where I work and play. But I had a client recently ask me, are there any foreclosure properties out there? And so I looked it up and I went back to the start of this year to get some of that data. And in Fort Wayne, Indiana, today, we have one active listing that's listed as a foreclosure, and total this year, we've had 22 listings. So Fort Wayne, Indiana has accounted for 22 of those 55,000 foreclosures across the country. It's an extremely small and minimal part of our market. We will really start to see, if we see cracks locally, we'll start to see some major changes in our listing data, in our new listing data. We'll see big increases in those. So that's another thread line. That's another data line that we're going to monitor as part of this locally. But locally, nationally, the foreclosure data remains low, remains below the pre-pandemic kind of historic averages, and is not a concern in terms of the health of our market today or in the immediate near future. So with that, share this video with someone that needs to hear it. Maybe you've got a doomer in your family that's going to be at the Thanksgiving table. Send it to Uncle Dave, send it to Uncle Jim, send it to Uncle Tom, who might be bringing some outdated information or stats that they have in their head. But as far as the health of the housing market as it goes by foreclosures, we are still in a great spot. So thanks for keeping it real estate with me today, guys. Again, let me know your comments, your suggestions. I want to cover the data, the questions, and the concerns that you have so that you can be informed, educated, and confident consumers when it comes to real estate. All right, thanks for keeping it real estate with me, guys.